What's up, y'all? A little faith, and welcome to episode number 15 of the Fagnostic Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hayes, and guess what? Still looking for answers, duh. Today, we bear it all with the naked pastor, David Hayward. I found David on Instagram and fell in love with his art. It's all based on spiritual deconstruction, de-evangelizing.
Down with the patriarchy.
Born in Canada, he was raised Christian and then attended a Pentecostal college to pursue a calling to ministry. Right before graduating with a master's in New Testament studies from seminary, his deconstruction began.
Everything is fine.
Finally, after 30 years in the church, he left the ministry to pursue his passion for art.
It's boot time, eh?
The naked pastor uses words and images to challenge the status quo, deconstruct dogma.
His only real beef with mankind is the shit that gets carried out in his name. War, bigotry, televangelism.
And offer hope to those who struggle and suffer under it. His art expresses the stories and struggles of spiritual refugees and independent thinkers who question, doubt, or oppose the confines of religion. Each piece encourages difficult conversations and acts as a catalyst for critical thinking. He describes himself this way: I'm an artist and writer who supports LGBTQ+ people and groups, BIPOC and women artists, creatives, journalists, and more, and encourage others to do the same. So take your clothes off and let's get naked with the naked pastor, eh? Welcome, David Hayward. The naked pastor himself, David Hayward, is here with us today, and I'm so excited because I found you online on Instagram, and your art just resonated with me. And in order to make you feel comfortable today, I also am appearing naked as a naked podcaster, which is actually not, what your name is about. I think it deals with like just being bare, that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. But the first two questions that we always ask, the first question is, are you a believer?
Well, thanks, first of all, for having me on your show, and hello, everybody out there. Well, that's a really, really complicated question, and it's an important one because, and it's an important question to explore. I'm all about questions are the answer, and inviting people to ask questions. So when somebody asks you that, I understand that comes loaded with all kinds of assumptions and presumptions and desires and expectations and all that. So what I like to tell people is that my home is in Christianity, but I have cottages everywhere. And
I love that.
I'm a river with many, many streams flowing through me. One of which is Christianity for sure. It's my family of origin. It's in my DNA. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, we're going to get back to that Christianity as being part of your DNA, because that's really interesting, because it suggests that there's no way to completely deconstruct or to totally leave it. So I want to touch on that. Don't answer that yet. We'll dive into it. And then the second question: can you just identify your pronouns for us?
Yeah, he, him, and I
Awesome.
go with my he, him. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And you also are making history on this podcast, for us anyway, because you're the first straight cisgendered man that I've had on this podcast. But you are such an ally to our community, and such a voice for a lot of people's spiritual thoughts that they don't know how to articulate themselves. And your artwork puts it on such a simple, clear, clever level that anyone can understand. So
well, Matt, that means the world to me. It really, really does. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's funny because when I first discovered your art, I assumed you were gay because there is such an advocacy for the queer community. And then I discovered you're straight. I thought, oh my gosh, like this is, I don't want to say more important, but it is so important to have straight, heteronormative, cisgendered people in our corner, especially in the religious sector, because that's the final frontier, is the pulpit.
Well, I'm honored. I'm very honored, very humbly honored. I really appreciate that. So,
well, let's get right down to it, David. Do you, real quick too, because you worked very hard to attain the titles that go before your name, in terms of reverend or pastor or father, do you ever use any of those anymore?
No, not for myself.
Okay.
Although Naked Pastor stuck, because it'd become a brand by the time I'd left the ministry in 2010. So I haven't actually pastored a local congregation since 2010. However, I've had enough people tell me that I'm acting as a kind of a pastoral person in their lives and online to people all over the world. And so kind of, me kicking against the pricks as Paul did.
Yeah.
It's just stuck with me. So
Totally.
I remember everybody used to say, well, not everybody, some used to say, you have a pastor's heart, and some people still say that. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm stuck with it.
I get it. I before I started my own deconstruction, I started college to become a pastor. I knew what
Hmm.
seminary I was going to go to. I knew what kind of congregation I wanted to lead.
Right.
And so and this is like from before puberty, I knew that I was going to be a pastor. But at that time, obviously, it was just an attempt to fix my gayness, to
Okay.
do whatever I could to be the best follower of God in Christ that I could, so I could get rid of that, that desire to love a man. But there's a Venn diagram between pastors, used car dealers, and actors, and I am an actor. And so I feel like I still am following my calling, in that I'm telling stories to the world in hopes of leaving it a better place, which is essentially what a pastor maybe not does, but should be doing, or should be their intent.
I've
Yeah.
never seen that Venn diagram, but boy, it sure does make sense. And it's funny
Well, you know what?
because
You can do it because it's not a real one. It's just in my head. So I give you I give you the creative licensing to whip it out.
I wonder what the middle will be. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the same with me. Like I left the ministry 2010. I taught in university for a little bit, but I decided to go into Naked Pastor full time, see if it would work, and it did. And it's me basically doing art. So
Yeah.
they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so that's what I try to accomplish every time. But yeah.
Well, I would absolutely agree that your pictures are worth 1,000, if not more words. I mean, truly, every time I see them, I just think because scripture is it's so wordy, and it can be, and I think that's why it's so easily misinterpreted, because it uses jargon that we don't even know what it means in context. But yet your art just depicts love, which is the only word we have to worry about in looking at scripture. I mean, there's of course other layers and theological studies or whatever, but I just your art is worth more than 1,000 words. I think I just love it, and we'll get to how you got there. But where did the Naked Pastor come from? What does that word mean? What does that brand mean?
Well, I bought the URL nakedpastor.com way back in 2005, I think it was, and at that time there was like the Naked Chef, the Naked Archaeologist, the Naked Truth, all these shows, and I thought the Naked Pastor, that'd be kind of cool, because there were a lot of blogging pastors out there, but nobody was really being honest about what goes on behind the scenes of a pastor's life. So I wanted to draw the curtain. I mean, pull open the curtain, tear back the veil, let people see behind, the scenes, what's really, really going on, not just the wonderful worship music and the church growth and the great offerings and the wonderful sermons and, all that. I wanted them to see the conflict, the financial struggles, the doubts and fears and questions and all that kind of thing as well. So I chose Naked Pastor. And so basically it's me as a pastor being raw, real, transparent, vulnerable, with no adornments, just the raw deal. So it's stuck. I mean, at first it was really, really offensive to a lot of people. I mean, you couldn't even get to my website from public libraries or schools or anything like that. But now it's pretty tame.
Wow. And you're based in Canada, right?
Yes.
Okay. Whereabouts? In Vancouver?
No, I'm on the other side. I'm
Okay.
all the way over on the other side, north of Maine, basically.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Like near Nova Scotia. Forgive my
New
geographical.
which is you go through New Brunswick to get to Nova Scotia. So
Okay.
yeah.
I've got a very close friend from Nova Scotia. And so
cool.
he'll tell me, because we look at Canada as this progressive, evolved, equitable, equality driven environment, and the city centers, sure, but where he's from and where I have a couple other friends from, Calgary area or whatever, it's just this, it seems to be the same as growing up in Alabama, like I did.
Yeah. It's
with a different accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But your wife is from Alabama.
Yeah, she is.
How did you guys meet?
Well, I met her at Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. So I went to Bible college from Canada to Springfield, Missouri, and that's where we met. And I'm serious. When I first met her, I first met her parents, I couldn't understand a word they were. So I was like constantly leaning over to her and saying, what are they saying?
I know.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've worked so hard to not have that accent anymore, and I you can still hear it in my voice for sure. But the longer I live, and the more that we just crave like a community or somewhere from which to come, the more I try to get it back out of my body. Like I want it to be there again. And because before I just used it to be funny or to make jokes because it lands differently, but I do now like try to bring it back into my speech when I can.
Well, my wife Lisa, she tried to lose it as well because she was waitressing or whatever when we went to college or to seminary in Boston, and now in Canada, she would try to lose it, but it still comes out when she's angry or excited or whatever.
Right. I know. I always say that. Yes, talking to my mom or having a bottle of wine, and you're going to hear it real good. But let's get to your deconstruction, because a lot of this podcast centers around the queer experience and us sitting in the pews and just being told that we're not worthy of love, that God can't love us, that we shouldn't love ourselves, that our entire existence is sinful and evil, and that's what starts us in our deconstruction journey. But yours was more from the outside of seeing how the church treated other people, not you, but others.
Yeah.
So, but it also, and I don't want to give too much away without you telling it, but I find fascinating that your deconstruction started while you were studying in seminary still. And yet you pushed forward for 30 years, pastoring churches and telling other people how to figure things out. But yet you were still in this crisis of faith.
Yeah. I did start. I can remember the moment that my deconstruction started, and that was in seminary, and it was all over the inspiration of Scripture, the 3 I's. Scripture is inspired, infallible, inerrant.
Yeah, and just so everyone, because this is Christian talk, church talk. So that just basically means that the Bible is literally the Word of God.
Yeah.
That he spoke to these prophets and ancient writers, and that just by his will, through the scores of translations over the past centuries, it is retained its inerrant and its literal, factual intent.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when I started questioning my beliefs, and it was a very, very slow glacial melt for me. I never felt like I was an imposter. I never felt like I was lying, because I always found gravitated towards churches where I felt I could be pretty honest and sort of share my journey. And so my journey was very, very gradual, like I say, like a glacial melt, almost imperceptible. And so certainly probably imperceptible to most people. But to me, it was just filled with anxiety and angst, because I didn't know where this was going to end up, where this was going to lead. And one of the big factors for me in my deconstruction was around my gay trans friends, who I could see no reason why they shouldn't be included in God's love, etc. And I couldn't make sense of it. And yet the Bible and the teaching that I'd heard about the Bible, or was given about the Bible, was one way, but my heart was going another. And that tension just became so great that eventually I was ready to throw in the towel and just quit everything and give up. When it suddenly dawned on me, one day I basically had I don't know what you want to call it, like an epiphany, where I realized we're all connected, we're all deeply united on a deep and fundamental level, and that the only thing that seems to separate us are ideas and thoughts and beliefs. There's one reality that we all share, but we all understand it differently and explain it differently, but there's just one reality, and that broke it for me. I was free. My mind had peace for a change, finally. And it just made sense to me. And I started expressing this and sharing my epiphany on my blog and stuff. And I knew my time was up. About a year later, my time in the ministry was up, just because of the pressure I could no longer continue teaching in the church along these lines. It just was too uncomfortable for too many people.
And this is not just a crisis of faith, but at this point, after a career at the pulpit, this was now going to be a crisis of your economics, of your income.
Oh my, yeah.
But how many? Because with you being honest from the pulpit from the get-go, I imagine a lot of people heard your struggles, heard your dialogue with God. So did any of those people? I mean, I hate to say, like, did you retain some followers? But like, did the number of people that you have pastored and mentored, did they kind of go on this journey with you, or did they all just say, no, I can't believe this?
Yeah. So my basic message was, look, I'm not your guru. We're here to learn together. Let's explore and learn together. And I completely, totally release you to discover how to be spiritual on your own, and find things out for yourself. That was my primary, motivation as a pastor, was to empower people to take control of their own spiritual lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still about that. That's still what I'm really about. And so in that way, that's how I managed to negotiate and maneuver through that kind of treacherous waters of, I know, but I would once in a while get somebody saying, listen, we need you to tell us what to believe. That's what we pay you for.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no, I don't feel that's what my job is. My job is to get you to think for yourself. Like, the best teachers are the ones who teach you how to study. Uh-huh. They don't just teach you facts, right?
Well, look at Socrates, the Socratic method. He answers questions by asking a question. What you just said really struck a chord about how people said, I need you to tell me what to believe. And it just makes me think about the current state of affairs in our country. I mean, and I can't speak to your country because I'm not there, but you look at all the Trump supporters and the gung-ho followers of the GOP, and they need someone to tell them how and what to believe. Yeah. And as you know, depending on when you listen to this, people, we're in the midst of a crisis in the Middle East that has not been this vibrational in a while. And I'm reading about how the Taliban, the way that they're able to gain control over the territories is they meet the religious needs of the people that live there, which is primarily Islamic, and so they extremize. How would I say that word in a way that it's a real word? Anyway, they are able to gain control by meeting the religious needs of the people there, and it reminds me of the GOP here in America, how they meet the religious needs of their followers in order to maintain power, be it anti-abortion, anti-gay marriage, anti-critical race theory, all the things that move the world ahead. Mm-hmm. The GOP knows if we want to retain power, we have to meet their needs, and their needs are based in bigotry. So how can we pander to them? And so to me, the Taliban and the GOP are not that different. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for saying that, but anyway. Well,
aren't we seeing some GOP people and NRA people sort of admiring the chutzpah of the Taliban, and how they're rejecting liberal democratic rule in favor of conservative values, family values, and religious. I mean, come on, it's just insane what's happening right now. But I've always believed conservatism and fundamentalism as a reaction to progress. It's not original, it's a reaction. Yes. So as the world makes more progress in terms of LGBTQIA plus issues as well, and realities, as well as critical race, as you said, and feminism and so
gender,
on. There's going to be even greater, more outstanding and outrageous fundamentalist reactions to that. And then we're going to see it in the US and in Canada and other countries.
Absolutely. Because those conservative values, I hate to call them values, they're not values. Those conservative ideas, nothing about conservatism is for something. It's against something. It's opposition. And it's like you just said, like they are reacting to the natural progression of the world. So it just speaks to the idea that conservatism is nothing but being against something. And that's why I just, I hope that it will continue to dwindle as, I don't know, this world is a little scary right now to feel hopeful for, but that's my hope, is that the progression
Mhm.
will win out because it's the natural state of affairs. It's
Yeah,
how evolution is natural. So we'll see what happens in 100 years, I guess.
well, it's like Martin Luther King Jr. said, the arc of justice is long. And I'm like, geez, how long?
I know how long, especially because we thought we were already towards the end of the long journey,
I know.
which is how we got so comfortable and how we got to where we are now. But that's why I keep fighting and why I want to do podcasts like this, because I think we have to get these dialogues going, started, and moving.
Absolutely.
So when you the deconstruction, what kind of backlash did you face from? I mean, because you were in the Pentecostal denomination.
Yeah, well, that's one of them. I call myself my own ecumenical movement because I've been in so many. I mean, I was baptized Anglican. I got saved in Baptist. We moved to Pentecostal. I switched to Presbyterian. I planted an independent church. And then I finally ended up Vineyard, actually. So I've been around. Yeah.
Wow. And the Vineyard is a pretty contemporary.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but evangelical. Yeah.
Yes. No. I had someone on recently on this show and who was part of the Lutheran congregation, and the progressive sect of Lutherans has evangelical in their abbreviation, in their title, or what, like Evangelical Lutheran Conference,
Right.
I think is what it is. And I just thought, the word evangelism is very triggering to me. And I think it is to you too, because it's a word that you use in your art a lot.
Yeah.
Though, oh my God, I actually just posted it. I think it's probably my favorite one that I've seen. It just says evangelism at the top, and it has this giant, like dark, gnarly toothed whale looking thing baiting a sweet little loving fish with a heart to show like, we're inviting you into this loving community only to destroy and eat you. You also have another one that I love.
Water, one of those deep ocean fish that uses the light.
Yeah.
That lure fish in, and then it takes a big bite of them. And yeah, a lot of people didn't like that one. But
well, you know what?
That's been my experience, where the bait is love.
Yep.
And you take it expecting, come join us at the table, but you weren't expecting to be the meal.
Yeah. Well, it's just like when you're actually, like that picture or that artwork depicts, the bait is then weaponized. Yeah. So you're hooked, literally.
Yeah.
And then, you have another one that I love too, that is a simple graph between deconstruction or deconversion, and I forget the word as you use, but it basically just shows the upwards trajectory. I've actually referenced it on this podcast already. It shows an upwards arrow, like the more deeply you are into your evangelism, the greater the deconstruction efforts have to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you remember which one it is?
I was thinking of another one.
And you guys can find all this artwork on his website.
Yeah.
And Instagram as well. You do a lot with sheep. That imagery is very powerful. But also, one of the things, we just touched on your beautiful wife as well, Lisa, being from Alabama. She's from a small, and this is coming from someone from a small town. And if I say they're from a small town, like, it must be itty bitty. But she's from a small town in Alabama, and she did not, her faith journey was not aligned with yours in the beginning. Is that right?
No, at the beginning, we met in a Pentecostal Bible college, and we were very much on the same page. So it was something we never really questioned. We traveled along the same kind of road basically for a long, long time. Went to seminary, became ordained in the Presbyterian Church, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of grew together.
Which Presbyterian church? Is it the PCA or the USA?
In Canada, Presbyterian Church in Canada.
Okay. Is that one of the ones that believes in predestination and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the Calvinism.
Calvinist, yeah, for sure.
I used to love Calvinism in high school, and I remember getting in fights with my dad about predestination, and he probably wishes that was the battle we had today. But I was just so gung ho Calvinist because it made me feel elitist. It made me feel better, like a better Christian, a stronger believer, if I could believe that I had no choice over the matter.
Yeah.
So, but when you left the ministry, was she there with you in terms of?
That's when things got rough. There's two, in my opinion, there's two kinds of deconstruction. There's the theological one where you question your beliefs. Then there's the church one where you leave the church. where you have a problem with the church and you have to wrestle with your relationship to the church. I know a lot of people who've left the church who are still very much a believer, but people who change their beliefs, most of them end up leaving the church because they're incompatible. So
I'm opposite of that. I go to church now because I love to be like the antagonist. I go to, here in Hollywood, there's a church called Hollywood United Methodist, and they're very progressive, very liberal and affirming, and still very like, Christian oriented. They're one of the first congregations to welcome the AIDS community back in the 80s. So they have a giant AIDS ribbon on their big bell tower overlooking Hollywood. And I go there and I just sit in the pews, just, internally challenging everything that's being said. But I love the community. I love how people there are searching. And it feels like, I'm so vocal about my search, and I feel safe there because I feel like everyone is just in the same loving boat. Yeah.
Beautiful. I wish more people could find that. And I do encourage that. A lot of people assume I hate the church. I don't. I just want it to do it right and healthy and fair and generous and so on. So that's great that you found such a place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Lisa and I, when I left the ministry, we also ended up having to leave the church. And it was rough. And that's when Lisa and our marriage went through a real difficult time, because our theological deconstruction had taken like 30 years. But our church deconstruction happened overnight. And it was a perfect storm of me losing my job, my paycheck. Our kids had left home recently, empty nest. We had to file for bankruptcy because we were so poor, being in the ministry so long. We lost all our friends. Lisa went back to university at 48 years old to get her nursing degree. And it was just hell. It was like brutal. And there was a couple of years there where it was touch and go. We weren't sure we were going to make it, but we finally did. It took some work, but we finally made it. And our marriage is better now than ever. But
I'm sure, because there's a level of honesty there.
It was a rough time.
Yeah. So is because I feel like, as someone who's agnostic, I'm on the dating apps. I look for people that have similar faith systems, but I also don't want to date someone who struggles as much as I do spiritually. So what is it like to navigate a relationship where you are seeing the divine potentially in two different ways?
And you know what? I wrote a whole book about this because it's so important. Till doubt do us part. When changing beliefs change your marriage.
Till doubt do us part. I'm logging onto Amazon right now.
So it's all about that. And there's a bunch of cartoons that you'll enjoy as well. It's all about that. And Lisa and I had to figure out, we basically had to sit down and renegotiate. Okay, how are we going to be married? Because our beliefs have changed so much. Our attitudes about church and prayer and God and all these. And we were working under the assumption that maybe our beliefs were the glue that held us together, when we came to the conclusion, no, that's not it. I mean, the first thing I noticed about Lisa wasn't her beliefs. I'll be honest with you. It was other things. And so we realized that we needed to rekindle that original flame of falling in love with the person, not their ideas, falling in love with the believer, not the beliefs, falling in love with the thinker, not the thoughts, right? So we had to sit down and renegotiate that and figure out, and we did it. And our spiritual paths are very, very different, but it's not compatibility of beliefs that keep you together. It's the respect and awe and wonder of the other person. And, leaving them responsible for their own spiritual well-being, and then leaving you responsible for yours. And that's what makes a healthy relationship.
I think you're so right. But it's interesting because a lot of pastors and first ladies of the church, so the pastor's wife or the pastor's spouse, they are seen as a unit, so I can only imagine the toll that this took on her. But yet the intent, when I teach acting classes, I talk about how you have to play the intent and not the obstacle. And I feel like that's what you guys did, is that you really what do we want? We want to love and be loved. You're my partner. How can we make this work? Yeah. So you guys were in it for the long haul.
You're an acting coach in Hollywood, of all places.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah. It's I'm very thankful. It's been I've been in LA for 8 years now, and it's a city of hopers and dreamers, and not a lot of doers. And so I think it's my blue collar roots that have allowed me to sustain myself here.
Wow.
And just whatever it takes, we got to do. But that also applies to the spiritual. Like I know so many people that are content not knowing, or content to not have the crippling anxiety at 4 o'clock in the morning, wondering about the divine and the afterlife. And I'm not content with that. I have to dig deeper, So that's why I have this podcast. That's why I do what I do. It's because I want to facilitate these conversations of, if you don't know, and I don't even know that we're designed to know in this lifetime, but I know for me personally, I have to keep searching.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah. And so that's why I like the word deconstruction, because it implies weeding, getting rid of obstacles. That for me is the primary reason we're here. That's what meditation's about. It's about cleansing and purifying and not clinging to certain thoughts and
deconstruction is its own journey. It's its own faith journey. It's the whether it's a non-faith journey or a faith journey, but it's not something that just happens. You say, okay, I don't believe, I'm done. And it gets back to what I wanted to touch on that you said at the top, is about Christianity being in your DNA. So what is retained today of your original faith, values, opinions, and education?
Everything. And I talk about this a lot. I'm glad you asked this question. This is really important, in my opinion, for spiritual growth and personal growth. When I say spiritual, I don't necessarily, for your agnostic or atheist listeners, I don't necessarily invoke any divine or supernatural. For me, spiritual means our inner personal growth. So that's what I mean by spiritual. It can include the divine if you want, but it doesn't have to if you want. So for me, I used to think of growth as linear, where you move along a line and you kind of leave your past behind you. That was no longer really a good model, because it implied that you were leaving stuff behind. The next one was stages, where you grow in stages and you kind of go up this stage, a ladder. But then that for me was no good either, because it sort of implied that you were leaving stuff beneath you and you look down on your former self and therefore other people who are in those stages. So I came up with a different model, which I call spatial, where we grow outward and we get larger and larger, so that everything's included, everything's subsumed into our growth. Kind of like, I compare it to compost, which is half earth and half shit. And it mixes together and it creates this rich, fertile soil out of which we grow. So all the bad stuff and all the good stuff of our lives gets all mixed in, blended together, and this is out of which we grow. And I encourage people, don't reject your past. Don't reject and look down upon your former self, your inner child, your inner teenager, that person who believed all that stuff and did all that stuff. Don't look down on that person, because it's a part of who you are. It's a part of your story. If you ripped out that chapter in your story, you wouldn't make sense right now.
Yep.
And so it's meaningful. And as Carl Jung instructed us, and other depth psychologists, it's important to integrate all those things about us, our child, our dark side, our anima, our animus, our wisdom, all these things we need to sort of integrate in a meaningful way, so that we become fully mature, individuated human beings. So that for me is what personal spiritual growth is. And that's
actually,
what compassion is, and it never ends.
That spatial growth, I think, sounds more evangelistic than what we know of evangelism today, because evangelism today is very exclusive. It's very sheltered, cut off, protected. It's very inward, where your spatial growth, and you guys can't see what he did, but it's basically you just kind of created a spear with your hands, and it just grows like bigger, like those plastic tinker toys that expand into giant globes. You know what I'm talking about? Like they kind of like, it's like a circle accordion of plastic pieces, kind of. That's what that, but that there's a greater influence in that too, because as you grow and expand and other people around you are growing and expanding, you start growing and expanding with one another. And then the collective effort of growth, hopefully, will have a greater effect on the world.
That's right. And it's like bubbles. It grows and grows and grows to include more and more. It's universal in scope. And like soap bubbles, you grow, and then one it touches another one, and they become one. They literally mold into each other, and with nice rainbow colors all around the outside. So it's that to me is what personal spiritual growth is now. It becomes greater and greater and more universal as we move along.
Wow. So you just touched on rainbow again. I mean, your advocacy for the queer community is just like, you can't even help it, David.
No, I know.
What kind of response have you gotten from queer people of faith in Canada that have seen your advocacy and allyship and just thought, were it not for you, I would not have known that I could have a home in spirituality?
Oh man, I get messages, such incredible messages from people, and it's so encouraging. Where a mom will say, I bought one of your cartoon prints and I gave it to my child who just came out, and they cried and they feel accepted. There was another story where a young person was suicidal, and which is not unusual, and as you know, and because of being bullied at school and so on, and just felt rejected. And they showed them a cartoon I did, and this person cried and felt loved and accepted, and actually helped him get rid of suicidal ideation, and is happy and confident now, and growing. And so, I get letters like that all the time, and it's just so encouraging. I'm so happy to be able to do that. But I'm not just trying to encourage my gay and trans, et cetera, friends. I'm trying to challenge the status quo to change. I really am trying to challenge, say, the church to change its mind. I think it will one day, but I want to work hard towards that. So that's why I do it all the time, once or twice at least a week, where I address this reality, hoping that change will come. Like the last church I was pastor of was a Vineyard Church in Canada. And unfortunately, last year, the Vineyard Church voted to not be affirming and not allow for same-sex marriages. And I was very, very disappointed in that, even though I'm not a pastor of the Vineyard anymore. It was just, I thought that was a really backward move. And yeah, so I want to fight against that.
Yeah, well, you're doing it. You're making such a difference. And what you said a bit ago also about how the mom bought the piece of art for their child, that's why artists are so, even if people hate to love them, artists are so appreciated, because we do things that, we articulate things in a way that a lot of people can't. And so that mom saw a way to connect and communicate to her child, you're okay, by your art, because she didn't know how to get those words out herself.
Yeah.
And that's so cool and rad. And it's just interesting to see how you've combined your pastoral skills on a pad, on paper, with the, pencil and paint or whatever medium you use. But were you always an artist? Like, were you always doodling, or how did the artistry come about?
Yeah. So I watched my dad paint with oil on board as I was growing up, and he was constantly drawing and everything. And I don't remember not drawing. And so I remember as a little kid drawing animals and birds and, characters. And I got into watercolor painting. I love doing watercolor painting as well. I sell my art as well. But I never really dreamed that it would actually become my life. But it has. I'm really thankful for that. And I couldn't do it without people supporting me. I mean, I would, but I can do it like full time, and it's such a joy.
Yeah, and we're going to get to how you guys can purchase your art, because you do art, or you do prints, you do stationery, you do a lot of stuff, and your website's really cool too. I was going to tell you, so one of my best friends, Daniel, is an artist, and he discovered his artistry during the pandemic, had never picked up a paintbrush, and is now making his living as a watercolor artist, and he's really, really talented. And about a week ago, I've been like in some darkness as of late, just really trying to figure out, what life post-pandemic looks like after a year of being forced to look and do what matters. And now we're back to normal. And it's like, none of this shit matters. Like, I kind of want to go back to 2020 a little bit. But I was like, I'm going to paint something. I had a vision in my head of what I wanted to paint to capture my mentality. And so I got a piece of cardboard that came in an Amazon box that didn't have any paper. And then I had watercolors that came from like the 99-cent store, like in a kid's coloring book or something that I bought as a gift for somebody in my little gift drawer. But I didn't have any brushes. And so as an actor, you have a bag for your auditions that will typically include like a foundation, just oil blotting papers, things to like make yourself look prettier than you are, because we're all struggling. I mean, nobody ages well here. And so I had a mascara brush and an eyeliner pencil that I used to pick up the paint and to draw on this cardboard box. And it was so ratchet, but I was like, I'm an artist. I was so proud of it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
After I'm gone, I'm sure it'll sell for millions. You can have first dibs though. Don't worry.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So what, I love too, how you recognize that while you were pastoring congregations, you actually are still pastoring. I mean, the people you just spoke about who were coming to you saying like, your art has allowed me to see beyond my obstacle. And even for me, you serve as a bit of a pastor, because your messages are so biblical and so scriptural in its basis, because they're all based in love. Thank you. What about your art? Do you look forward to doing the paintings?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But because they're speaking on things that are not happy. So do you ever feel like it's draining to have to keep up this fight? Like, why, I know that Christianity is part of your DNA, but why keep fighting for the church? Why?
Yeah. Well, like my watercolor paintings, that's a different thing altogether. It sounds like you're talking mostly about my cartoons. Some of my cartoons are just funny, and just lighthearted and so on. But yeah, a lot of them are kind of like, I compared them to political cartoons, but in the religious arena, where they're punching home a point, and they're not always funny. They tend to be more serious, right? But I just keep it up because I care, I guess, really. I have in my studio a little sign that says, help people. And that's what motivates me to just help people, to encourage and to challenge. And so that's what keeps me going is the messages I get from people. But I'll be honest with you, sometimes I do get really, really discouraged because I get nasty comments. I get tired of homophobes constantly quoting scripture, constantly telling me I'm going to hell and LGBT are going to hell, and constantly, like, I just get so tired of the boredom of it and the hatred behind it. Honestly, it really is boring because it all sounds the same. And I can almost always tell when somebody's going to say is against what I'm writing, because their comments are the longest. Yeah. And they have a bunch of caps. Yep. And
so many evangelicals are evangelical because they're trying to reinforce their own ignorant belief system. So if you can convince others, it helps me convince myself.
Yeah.
That's the basis.
It sounds like, but it does sound like they're a bunch of dolls from a factory, and you pull a string and they all say the same thing, and it gets really exhausting after a while.
Yep. Where do you see God right now? Or the divine? Do you believe in a divine?
Well, like I said before, that epiphany I had in 2009 was mind-blowing, because I saw that we're all one. And it's I get a lot of my spiritual food from reading quantum physicists, scientists, mystics of all religions, including Christianity. People like,
there's a mystic that I actually have. Somebody just gave me this book. I'm looking at trying to find the guy's name. Khalil Gibran. It's called The Prophet. Have you heard of it?
Khalil Gibran. Yes.
Yes. I'm notorious for butchering names. Yes. It's a short read too, it looks like. So I'm going to try to read that this weekend.
Yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of mystical, and you know what? They all sound the same to me. They're all speaking the same language of this universal oneness.
Yep.
that we're all connected, we're all one. And I'm including that which we call God in that whole equation.
Right.
So that there's no separation, there's no division. It's only thoughts that seem to divide us.
Yeah.
And if we can get in touch with that oneness, then that's where the beauty is. That's where the peace of mind is. Actually.
How do you stay in touch with the oneness? How do you stay in touch?
Well, just by being aware. Just by being aware. Just stop the panic, stop the rush, stop the anxiety. Just center yourself. Just breathe.
Yeah.
Just notice. Just be aware that's what actually is. I don't have to do any exercises or anything. It's almost like walking in the forest. Lisa and I like going forest bathing, where we just walk through the forest and breathe the beautiful fresh air in these northern woods of Canada. And we don't have to be saying anything. And we just feel connected and at one with all things, and that there's no separation. And so it can happen at any place, at any time. It's always there. It's like I said, there's only one reality that's constant, permanent. And it's just tapping into that awareness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's if I, in this faith journey that I'm on, or non-faith journey that I'm on, if I'm to believe in a God, where I see God is in the connection of people. It's in the space between.
Right.
And it always makes me think of that. I talk about this every episode, so I'm sure my listeners are getting tired of hearing it, but it's that the verse where two or more are gathered, there I am also. And to me, that speaks to, it's that connection where the divine lives. But unfortunately, I also see the opposite of the divine in those same spaces, in those we're so politicized and extreme right now. And so in between these two souls, these two beings, where the divine should be, I'm seeing the devil, or whatever the opposite of divine is, and that's where my struggle is right now, is just, how does the divine coexist with the devil? I don't know how to rationalize that.
Yeah. So I struggle with that too. And that's the age old problem. Why is there evil? Why do the wicked prosper? And et cetera. And I think about that a lot. And I think about science, where why do things cool down? Like, that is a question. Why do things cool down rather than heat up? Why do things slow down and fall rather than rise? And these are really valid questions. But I think that's also happens in the spiritual realm, where things cool and fall. And it takes work. Hatred is the cooling and the falling. The evil is the cooling and the falling, where nothing is done. It just happens. It's laziness, it's sloth, it's negativity, it's the pulling down. Love takes work. Justice takes work. It takes energy and passion to care and to change the world. And that's why we can't stop. That's why we can't give up.
No, you're so right. There's an activism that's required in love, and your marriage speaks to that. And it kind of, every episode I have some kind of epiphany, and you just brought about the latest. And that is because, to me, I try to see that the world is an innately good place. But if that's the case, that actually does not require the activism that love does. And so if there is, and like you're saying, if evil and the devil is in the cooling and the slowing down, then it's up to us to engage and activate the love and the goodness and the momentum, which is kind of opposite of what I've always thought. So that's
like, why even the idea of Satan falling like lightning from heaven, falling, everything's falling, but it's the fall of the Garden of Eden, how things are slowed down. That's why this resistance, this conservative fundamentalist populism that's resisting progress and change and advancement and growth, it's lazy. It just, like a heavy stone. It's cold. It falls. It cools down. It's not sexy at all. And I think that's how I understand how things happen. That's why I believe love takes work. Love is a verb, and change requires work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Christian contemporary Christian group DC Talk?
Oh yeah.
So they had a song. It was like, so their first album back in the early to mid '90s, probably early '90s, was very like pretty hip hoppy. I mean, it was very like it was pretty rappy, and like it was really great. And they were really cutting edge for their time. But they had a song called "Love Is a Verb," and I remember just the catchphrase of the chorus was like the word "love." What? Love is a verb. So that's what that made me think of. As anyone knows, I'm not a rapper, so I'm sure that I just butchered the phrasing of that. But I love that. Love is a verb, and your entire life, David, speaks to that. I'm so thankful to have you in our corner. I'm so thankful your art is able to articulate words where there are no words. I cannot imagine the number of lives that you have saved and impacted just because you're honest with your journey.
Thank you. And you know what? I don't take that lightly. That's the biggest compliment. And I'm honored. I really am to be welcomed in that way. And so I really do appreciate that. From the bottom of my heart, I really do. Thank you.
Of course. Real quick, what book was it that started? Because you have listed on your bio on your website that there was a book, and I think I know what it is. But tell me what it was. What book was it?
It's so funny. I just mentioned that book in passing, and you won't believe how many messages I get. What was that book? You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. It could have been an ant walking across my foot.
Yeah.
It could have been a movie. It could have been a book or a poem or anything. But it happened to be a book I read just before graduation that challenged. He basically believes that there might be 7 authentic sayings of Jesus recorded in the Gospels, and the rest aren't from the mouth of Jesus. And it shook my world. It was written by James Breach, a New Testament theologian at the time, called The Silence of Jesus. And it just shook my world. I mean, I remember I had my graduation gown on. I was graduating with an MA in New Testament studies and theological studies. I had my graduation robe on, my everything ready, and I was freaking out in our bedroom. And Lisa actually had to grab me by the shoulders and say, "You have to go to graduation." Like I was literally freaking out, but that's where it began. Yeah.
Do you ever look back on that time and think, why did I spend 30 years after that trying to fight this? Wow, that was adamant. Why?
Well, because the growth thing, right? Everything's included. I wouldn't be who I am talking with you right now unless I'd had the 30 years.
Yes. Okay. I get it now. I get it. Yeah. Wow. Because I don't regret my upbringing. I'm thankful to have been raised Southern Baptist, the way that I was. Yeah, I know. But, but there are times when I look, especially being here in LA, and kids grow up without the antagonism of religion. And I just think you're so fucking lucky to not have to look at this world in a binary sense of this or that, or heaven and hell, God or Satan. Yeah. Because it's that binary informs every aspect of our world. And by informs, I mean destroys. It leaves no space for grace. It leaves no space for gray.
Right.
And I
compare it to a brain tumor that has tentacles spread all throughout the brain, where, surgery is nearly impossible, takes a long, long time, and could be fatal. You know what I mean? It's that. Like people are like, well, I stopped believing in Santa one day and that was it. It was over. No big deal. But it's not the same, because our religious life and our religious belief saturated everything from what we did first thing in the morning, how we thought about sex and gender, what we did before we ate, what books we could read, what friends we could have, what we did with our time. Everything was influenced by our beliefs.
Everything.
And so it's hard to extricate just a belief when it actually has tainted every aspect of our lives. That's why deconstruction is so terrifying for so many people.
Yes, and it's, as someone who's in the midst of deconstruction, it's not easy. I mean, it leads to anxiety, to depression, and I get a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, because I don't have a lot of those people in my life anymore, thankfully. But a lot of people on the evangelical side would say, well, that's just you. That's just God speaking to you, saying that you're wrong and that you need to get your life in order with Christ so that you don't have that anxiety and depression. Well, that's the easy way out. If that's the conclusion that I come to 20 years from now, cool. But if I come to that conclusion, which I really don't think I will, then it will be hard fought. And I feel like, like you're just saying, that growth is what makes us who we are, what informs who we become. So
well, that what they're offering you is like something that treats the symptom, and it's not a cure. Deconstruction's happening in your mind right now, and you can numb it with different things: worship songs, going to church, Bible, praying, having Christian friends, doing whatever you do to keep the faith. But that disease is going to take its course, and you're going to end up somewhere you didn't plan. And I'm all for that. I support people who are going through that, because the goal can be peace of mind. Yeah.
I think there's also, it's the deconstruction is such a, I don't want to say a cause of a lot of the falls within the church, but you read about these pastors and these religious leaders who, Jerry Falwell Jr., my God, when I first saw that, all that stuff coming out about him and his wife, my knee-jerk reaction is, ha ha, thank God everyone sees you for the fool you are. But then my compassionate side kicked in of, what an internal conflict he must have been feeling to go down this path secretly. What kind of, I don't know. I hope that I'm right in assuming that he has a soul and a conscience, but I did have a bit of sympathy for someone whose faith struggle was so exposed all of a sudden in such a terrible way.
Well, that tension we were talking about, where fundamentalism is a reaction to progress. That doesn't just happen out there. It happens in here too, in my own mind.
Yes.
So when somebody is ranting and railing and raving against gay sex, often we discover that they were wrestling with that progressive thought in their own mind.
Yes.
And their own fundamentalist spirit was reacting to it. So it's not just out there, it's also happening within each one of us.
You're so right. And when that fundamentalism tries to tackle the innate progress, it becomes a poison, it becomes a toxin that I think causes people to really act out in negative ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so glad that that's not what happened to you, because again, you have done so much good through your art. Where can we find your art?
Nakedpastor.com.
And that's also your Instagram handle, where you post regularly great cartoons.
Naked Pastor, search Naked Pastor, one word. Don't use two words, because you'll see things that you can't unsee.
Or that maybe you don't want to unsee. That there's a kink for that, I'm sure, David.
Yeah, well, actually, there is. I know there is, because it's everywhere. So I think that's why Naked Pastor, nakedpastor1word.com had so much trouble in the beginning. But so nakedpastor.com, and Naked Pastor is on Instagram and on Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest and TikTok, everywhere.
Yeah. I bet when I wonder how many people the universe has led to you by them searching for the Naked Pastor, just trying to get off, and then ended up being like on a new journey of spiritual freedom. And
well, I've had a lot of nudists reach out, and actually I have been invited a couple of times to come preach at nudist colonies, and no, that's not my gig. But
wow,
I'm not against it, but
right. I said the pulpit was the final frontier, but I think that pulpit would be the actual final frontier.
Yeah, it's probably made out of glass too.
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. David, if the divine were standing before you today, and that could be the divine that you know today, or the one that you are looking to know today, or the divine that you knew pre-deconstruction, what would you say to them?
What the fuck?
Well, but without asking a question, what would you say?
Okay, what would I say?
That's most people's first reaction. Also, you're not alone in that. That's most people's first reply.
What would I say? Something probably like nice to meet everybody.
Oh, that's interesting.
Nice to meet everybody. Because
You see it as one.
It's like Karl Barth, the Reformed theologian, believed that the last day wasn't actually an event that where Jesus came and everything changed. He actually believed the last day was a pulling away of the veil so that we see things as they actually are. And that's what I think. That's what I think of when I think of the end, whether it's my life or the world or whatever, where we'll finally see things the way they actually are.
I would
As one.
I would counter that as I think we are seeing some of the way things really are right now. There's a little bit of the veil pulled away, but I'm hoping it's just the first layer of the veil, and that the real layer of the veil is a little more friendly.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
David, I thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and learn about your journey, and just to hear how many people outside myself have benefited from your art. Y'all, please go check him out. Naked Pastor, one word, on Instagram and on the URL tab. And I hope to speak with you again. And if I'm ever wandering around the northern woods of Canada, I will be sure to go forest bathing and call out for David and Lisa.
Yeah, come and see us. We got plenty of room now that our kids are gone.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much, though. I have enjoyed it.
Yeah, good. Thanks again.
Yep.
And all the people said, gay men. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Fagnostic Podcast, hosted by me, Matt Hayes. You can find me at matthayes.com, that's MATHAYES.com, or on Just the Millennial socials at Hayes on It, HAYES on It. Please go subscribe, review, and share this podcast. And in the meantime, peace be with all y'all.
Hi, Michael Spicer here. Matt Hayes forgot to put my name in the credits of his podcast as the composer, but I'm here to tell you that I wrote the music for his podcast. Whatever it's called, I don't know.